Well, congratulations on getting a body composition scan. So what does the whole thing actually mean? I'm going to talk you through it. First, the first 3 pages are kind of the meat and potatoes, lack of a better analogy there, but it is where you're going to get the majority of the information. Everything else beyond that kind of dives a little deeper and gives you the comparisons left to right and by region and that sort of thing. So if we just focus first on those first 3 pages, each section in those first 3 pages gives you a description of what it is looking at. But even still, it might need a little bit more explanation. So under client, on that very, very top bar, it'll tell you everything that you gave us. And that is what we have entered into the computer. So if for some reason there are discrepancies on age, sex, ethnicity, or birth date, you let us know. Then beyond that is everything that the computer and that the DEXA scanner has read. So for lean tissue, in that box, that is the total mass of what it has measured you. And then what amount of you is lean tissue, and then under that, what percentage of you is lean tissue. So lean tissue is organs, muscle, and fluids, with the majority of that being muscle. So then underneath that is fat. So there you'll see a graph to the left and then a fat mass to the right. So fat mass in pounds is the total pounds of fat that you have on your whole body. Then beneath that is the percent fat that you have on your body. It gives a little description there, and then to the left of that you see a little graph. It's probably purple. And you'll see a little dot somewhere on that graph. That dot is you in comparison to an age, sex, ethnicity, height, and weight matched population. So the dark purple and then the black line within that dark purple is the average. And so then that little dot is you in comparison to that population. Beneath that is something that should just be cut off. The body mass index is relatively worthless in the fact that if you work out 30 minutes 3 times a week, that BMI is actually null and void. The person that has had the lowest body fat percentage that I have scanned has also been marked as obese because they were short and very muscular. So the only 2 factors that it looks at are age, it doesn't even look at age, are height and weight. So again, not very helpful. So then if you turn the page, you're gonna see android/gynoid, which is a waist and hip ratio. So in that little box, it'll show you what percentage of fat you have at the android region and what you have at the gynoid region, and then what that ratio is. Usually it's going to be somewhere about 0.5 to about 1.8 or 9, somewhere in there. 1 to 1.25 is kind of the middle of that range. So if you are above that, you tend to be more of an apple, and if you are below that, you tend to be more of a pear. The only significance to this is that people that are apples have a higher prevalence of cardiovascular disease. So it's just more information to have and to know. Then below that is what I find to be up there of the most important, which is bone mineral density. So you will have a graph on the left stating the same kind of point reference to that matched population. And then the middle line will be, which is the darkest line, is the average for you in that matched population. So somewhere there's a dot, and that dot is you. So if you look to the right, you'll see in that box that's within the section of bone, age. So it'll list your age. It'll give you your bone mineral density just in a grams per centimeter squared format. T-score, Z-score, and then this percentile of which you fall. So T-score is a very specific, a T-score is not going to be listed for this simply because That is a measure that you need a different bone mineral density. It's a very, very specific bone mineral density scan that we do here at Pivotal Connections, but it is for a true diagnosis of osteopenia or osteoporosis, where we look at the first 4 of the last 5 lumbar vertebrae, and the usually it's the left hip or the right hip, and sometimes occasionally the wrist. And that is how a diagnosis of osteoporosis or osteopenia is used. So again, just good information to have. Overall, this is just a snapshot of your whole body. So this is not a diagnosis of osteoporosis or osteopenia, but it is a just a good overall snapshot. So if that is low, or if you're average or below average, definitely have your bone mineral density done, because it's just truly important information to have, particularly for women 40 and over. And that's in a different video that is good to make reference to. Below that is your resting metabolic rate. Resting metabolic rate, and in this case basal metabolic rate, are kind of interchanged. So that is what your body needs, so the caloric content. So if you need 1,400 calories or 1,600 calories or whatever it says there, that is the number of calories that your body needs just at rest. So if you laid down in one place, midnight to midnight, that is the number of calories that your body would burn, which is usually more than people recognize. So the relative skeletal muscle index, or RSMI, is a relationship of muscle in your arms and your legs, and we want that number to be as high as possible, particularly the older that you are, because the older that you are, the harder it is to develop muscle. And so if you'll see that in relationship to this graph, so we want you in normal or above. So if you're in that low muscle range, it's time to lift weights and work on strength. Then if you turn the page, there is, so it'll say page 3 of 3, visceral adipose tissue, VAT. There's no description there. We're going to go to the next page in a second where there's far more description. And then below that, there's an assessment portion, which we don't complete here. We just produce the scan and the report. But if you were working with somebody like a nutritionist or a weight trainer or something, they might be able to go through that with you. Usually people can figure that information out on their own. But if you turn to the next page, now we're looking at abdomen composition. And that description talks more about that android region, the gynoid region, and then this core scan, which gives you the visceral adipose tissue content within those regions. And visceral fat is the amount of fat that is deep within your organs, like in and around your organs. You can't see it. I have seen skinny people with high VAT, and I have seen big people with low VAT. So it's not necessarily a size correlated thing. Skinny fat is a thing. I will say that. So for the total and the android and gynoid sections there in those little purple boxes, that's the same information on the previous pages, just put in graph form. Then if you go down to the visceral adipose tissue, or VAT, then you're going to see graphed what your VAT is by age, and then also what just in the volume, and then the total pounds, and then the date of your scan. So if you go to, in that gray box, fat mass, that is the total pounds that it has measured. So if you flip back to your first page under that fat mass, you're going to see how many total pounds of fat you have. And then here you're going to see how much of that total fat is visceral fat. We want that 5% or less. And I will produce another video on how you can calculate to make sure you're within that if you don't know already. Then if we flip our page, we're going to see the lean mass balance. Now here, if you have done one scan it'll just have that one scan listed for your arms. It says your age, and then lean tissue right and left. So it does lean tissue right and left for your arms, your legs, and your trunk. If you have had 2 or more scans, on the far right in the little blue boxes, it'll tell you what that lean mass difference is from left to right. But if you look in the columns for the lean tissue left to right, then you can see the changes in where that muscle has changed from scan to scan, whether it has gone up or whether it has gone down. Then if you flip the page to fat distribution, there's a graph on the top. And usually there is a black dot and a magenta dot. If you have one scan, again, you'll just have 2 little dots. And if you've had multiple scans, then you will have an actual graph and you can see the trend of where you're headed. So that fat mass is on the left, and that is just fat. So that and then that axis on the left will tell you the number, which is what you have already seen. And then on the right axis, there's fat-free mass. So that is everything else. So that is bone and lean tissue. So then you can see the trend. Now, if you look to the bottom where it has a whole bunch of numbers listed, if you've had just one scan, it'll have just that one scan listed. But if you've had multiple, you'll get to see differences here. So it'll give you region. So this is body fat percentage by region of the body. So arms, legs, trunk, android, which again is around the belly button, and gynoid, which is around the hips. So if you go to the rightmost column, it says percent change versus baseline. So that if your first scan, it'll always consider your baseline scan. So it will compare always to this first scan. So if you've had multiple scans, it'll always compare that scan to your baseline scan. And then in the column just to the left of that, it'll say percent change versus previous. So if you've had more than 2, so 3 or more, then it'll give you the percent change from your previous scan, and then the percent change in that right column compared to your baseline scan. Then percent body fat by region, it'll show you then what your body fat percentage is by region. And then of course you can see the exact age you were when that scan was done and when that scan occurred. So if you flip to the next page, you might have a couple of different things. One, you might have our relationship with FitTrace. It'll tell you how you can access some of your scans online. And if that has not happened, which it's kind of been an interesting evolution sometimes, people get them, sometimes they don't. We might have to dig a little deeper into our system if you haven't received that. But you'll also receive a thermal image, well, it looks more like a thermal image of yourself with yellow, an orange, and white shading. So fat tissue is yellow, lean tissue is orange, and white is bone. And that is it. So this is a lot of information, and it's not intuitive. It's not something that you just look at and totally understand. So I highly recommend looking it over, reading each section, and doing your best to digest that information. And if you still have questions, reach out to us. All of our information is on the front of that scan. Our phone number is 707-702-2241. And hopefully we'll continue to kick out more and more information. Again, thanks for coming in. So as you get more scans, the price goes down because there's less description that you need from us and less involvement. So at 3 and more scans are currently just $100. So come on in and get that done. And if you want bone mineral density, like the specific measurement, give us a call as well. Wonderful. Thank you so much.